Hi there. This week in art class we are going to be drawing faces. I don't want you to be scared. I think you guys did great the last project you did, and I think you surprised yourself, and I think again you will surprise yourself. So I'm not looking for hyperrealism. We are working on proportions today. So you're going to get this handout. It shows you a general rule for proportions. This is not a one-size-fits-all. Of course, everybody was made differently, so all of our features are going to be a little different, but this is a really good guideline to follow, so keep it close at hand. We'll get to that in a minute. So this is what I'm looking for. I am looking for proportions correct. I'm looking for features correct, you know, lips that look like lips, a nose that looks like nose, eyes that look like eyes. I'm looking for dimension. I don't want just a flat face that looks surprised. I want a range of values. I want the tones to change on the face to make it look like a round face or a dimensional face. I want the eyes, you know, to sink back a little bit. So all the shading that you have been working on up until now will help you in this process. So this is the picture I did last year. He's a little more realistic than her, but even his eyes are still not hyper realistic. They're still kind of very simple. So, but their eyes, they have feeling in them, they have dimension. His nose, you notice there's no harsh line on the nose that defines the nose. You're gonna be really tempted to do that because, I mean, that's just what you do. You put two lines down the side that makes a nose. But we're gonna use our shading to make sure we do that instead. We wanna get those dark darks in there. If we didn't have that dark dark, that wouldn't look like her neck was way back. Same with him, like you wouldn't see, if this wasn't as dark, it wouldn't push that back as far. So we're gonna work on that this week and getting our proportions right. So you're going to get a reference photo of a real person, ideally black and white, because black and white is already interpreted for you. Oh, you can't see my legs. Okay, so it's already interpreted for you. So you don't have to do the hard work of figuring out shadows and what's color and what's not color and what's skin tone and what's, you know, shadow. So black and white photo. I usually print one out, and I'm going to show you why I print it out, but I also have my more detailed version of her on my tablet, or if you have a really good printer, like this was printed out really good, but I don't have this printer available anymore, so I can't do that. So I have to have my picture on my tablet. See if I can adjust that a little bit. My picture on my tablet so that I can reference and I can see where the shadows fall, and I don't have to guess, because this is a really poorly printed picture, but it's going to come in handy, and I'm going to show you why in a second. So on this proportion sheet, it breaks down how the face is split and where features fall. So if you draw we're going to draw our face shape, or oval, or whatever shape your person's face is, and then we're going to split it in half. So I'm kind of measured. You can use your little centimeter measurer here, or you can get a ruler that's normal. So I'm going to measure out her center, and I'm going to mark it, and I'm going to make sure and go all the way across. I did my center line also, and then I'm going to take and measure half of the bottom. So we're going to put in that line, and that falls right there. And then I'm going to measure this. I'm going to split this in half also, so that one falls there. So I have my lines on my face. Now on this worksheet, it shows that the center line falls through the pupil, but on my girl, it doesn't. So my center line falls at the top of her eyes. So that's where this comes in handy. So she's got a shorter forehead than this person on this proportions face chart does. But also, but also, when I split this part, her nose, the tip of her nose falls on this line instead of underneath her nose like it shows on here. And this one goes right over the bottom of her lip, right through the center of her mouth, which it does here. So her face proportions are a little different. But I can use this to do this. And then it shows, so she's smiling. So that's going to fall a little bit different. So the corners of her mouth, I'm going to bring them up, and they're going to fall kind of on the inside of her pupil. And then the edge of her nose is going to fall right on the edge of her eyes. Okay, so I know how wide things are going to be. The only guessing I really have to do is how big are the eyes? You know, I'm enlarging this, so it kind of is a little bit of a guess, and I have to play around with everything just to make sure that I get it right. Okay, so I'm going to dive right in, and first thing I'm going to do is draw in her mouth. So you see this shape in here where her mouth is open a little bit. Just like we did with the flowers last week, we're going to draw what we see. So she's got kind of a little open spot. It's not very far open, but it is a little bit, enough to show some teeth. And then her lips, she doesn't have she doesn't have thick lips, so. And I dove right in, but we're going to choose 4 pencils maybe. I think I chose an H. I'm using my H to sketch because it needs to be really light. This all has to be erased. These lines likely won't make the cut. So if you need an eraser, I already did her once and I was unhappy with it, so we're trying again. And the video was really long, so I'm trying to shorten this one a little bit. So then I'm going to erase some of those lines inside. All right, and then she has teeth, but they are barely visible. So we're just going to lightly mark them in for now. Now I feel like that's a little low. Doesn't it feel like that's a little low? I think this lip is too big. We're going to go with that for now, because I feel like that is way too close. Okay, so I went and I measured my half parts out, but so her little dip and her little nostrils. And then just to mark, now I'm going to go through and I'm going to mark everything. My mistake last time, I went in and I drew everything and then I realized it was off. So if I just do this lightly right now, I can go in and I can see what is not right. So this will be the inside. If you need to measure something, you can always measure with your pencil. So that will show where that goes. That will show where that goes. So that should be the corner of her eye. Hopefully that's not too wide. All right, hopefully you can see all this, and I'm not drawing too light. It's important to draw light, but I also need to draw so you can see. All right, and her eyes are kind of, if I were to draw a line through there, they're not quite as big as you think they are. It's a little flatter. Now I need to watch the eyelashes. Sometimes you want to draw and you don't realize you're actually drawing where the eyelashes are. And it's really hard to get the eyes the same. So it may take a couple tries. Don't be afraid to erase. All right, so I'm going to put in her irises. Now, make sure her irises go behind her eyelids, and you don't just put a circle there and a pupil. That's not what her eyes look like. Okay, and I am going to add a little highlight because I think that makes it look way more realistic. You don't have to if you don't want, but I think the highlight is really nice. Okay, we're going to get her, try and make them the same size, and then you're going to put the highlight in the same spot. Try and get the pupil the same size. Remember, her iris is circular, and so it would come down and around, but we're not going to draw that. All right, so far so good. I think we're doing all right. Okay, eyebrows come a little inside. Her eyebrow is kind of flat. Doesn't look so much on the really bad printout, but on this, you can see her eyebrows are definitely more flat. Again, this is just a rough draft, just to get things in the right place. Because if they're not in the right place, you can move them. Like that one, I think is too low. Alright, well, we're going to go with that for now. Can always adjust. It's probably too low. Very, very important that you get a picture that's looking straight at you to start with when you're learning how to do this, because anybody whose face is turned definitely has different proportions. Your face would be longer on one side and shorter on the other if you had a turned face. So there's no reason to create more work for you, especially right now when you're just getting started. So, all right, let's see, I think her nostril is a little bit more. I think I'm happy with that. She's got some smile lines. I feel like this is more of a smile than my last one. And I might bring her chin down just a little bit. I feel like I got a little. Although she is smiling, so her chin is going to be shorter, but that's all right. This makes me feel better. All right, and then her hair. So this is the top of her head here. So her hairline is coming over here. So her hair is actually cutting down here. And then she's got, doesn't really cut that side off a whole lot. Okay, so I can erase a lot of these lines. I don't have my other eraser. Okay, so you can see it's starting to take shape. I think I can get rid of these. And then I can look to see if I feel like her face is right. I feel like her nose is a little big, so I might cut that a little bit smaller. I feel like her nose is too far away from her face, or from her. All right, so I'm going to add some soft shadows in here. I'm still with my H. I haven't gotten into anything dark yet. Just trying to establish some all right, and I can put these, start getting this a little darker. Remember, pencil is meant to be layered. And then we're going to need our blending stump. Actually, have something to wipe it off. And we can start softening some of that. Alright, see how we're just putting on the side of the nose? Noses are tricky. I am not a fan of noses. They are not my favorite. They're tricky and they're tough, and she's just got very soft shadows. Barely anything that determines what her nose is. Okay, but there you can already see it's starting to take shape. I can even go in with my 6 and get some of that darkness in there. It's going to push those nostrils back. And then I usually always soften with my blending stump. Again, make sure you have something to clean it off, or you'll drag all that darkness way too far. Alright, I'm going to go in with my 2B. She has brown eyes, so they're not terribly dark, but I'm going to get that iris. I love doing eyes. Eyes are probably my favorite. They just add so much. Make sure you stay out of the highlight. Lightly soften that. And then I'm going to take I think my 6B is my darkest. I'm going to come in with my pupil. And get that in there. Some artists like to save that for last, but it kind of creeps me out to have an eyeless thing staring at me. I like to give her a little life. Alright, and she's got, eyelashes that we'll have to put in. Not yet, but eventually. And then there's a little shadow around the eyeball. That's not going to be, so you have just very little, almost white. Most of it will be some sort of shaded bit. All right, I probably made her eyes a little small. Her eyes look a little bit small compared to but my other ones were way too big. So, they still look like eyes. All right, I got my HB. I'm gonna come in and make these heavy lines. She kind of has bags under her eyes too. She's awfully young to have bags under her eyes. That's all right. Maybe she didn't sleep well. All right, she's got cheekbones because she's smiling. So there's going to be a really light cheekbone shading going on. Make it look like she's smiling. Same on this side. And of course, there's going to be lots of shadows up here. Okay, looks kind of creepy right now, doesn't it? I agree. comes in where she's smiling, around her cheekbones. And if it gets too dark, just take your eraser and lighten it up a bit. All right, let's do a bit on her lips. So I have her lips fairly dark. I don't know if you can see that. A little bit. All right, so her teeth, again, we don't want them to look creepy. There's a highlight that comes right across here. So this is going to be my lightest area. And then the dimension will be, a lot of the shadowing will be down here. This is pretty dark in here. And then her upper lip is actually pretty dark. Okay, I'm going to soften and slightly color that in. All right, so I just took whatever was left on my blending stump and right over there. Okay, and then there's just a little bit that kind of defines her chin. Smiling is hard. I didn't realize how hard it was to draw a smiling person. Doesn't look like she's smiling. So I'm going to come in and redefine. Again, looks kind of flat. So I'm going to come in with a darker one. I get my 2B. Push that way back. Maybe further than it actually is, but that's all right. Trying to get that curved look again. Okay, then we want a little bit darker right down here underneath her lip. And then you can see a couple little teeth in here, but I'm going to soften those. And then push them back just a tad bit. Because they're not white, but they're not like that little line I put in there. Okay. All right, I'm back. Went and had dinner. So I came back and I did a little bit of work on her chin and around her eyes, and I actually grabbed my Q-tip, and I find that I'm getting some softer, it's kind of working better. So grab Q-tip, and it doesn't drag those heavy colors like the blending stump was doing. So you can put those really faint colors in, those really faint values. All right, so I'm gonna work on her hair a little bit. I fixed her lips or her teeth a little bit, and I lightened up in between. I don't want it to look creepy looking. I mean, you know, like I said, smiles are hard, so we're just doing the best we can. But I want to get in and show you a little bit of hair, because I believe I said this didn't need to be hyper realistic, but I just can't help myself. Not that this is hyper realistic, it's just more realistic than, say, the first picture I showed you, that one. So I'm putting in a little bit more detail. All right, so let's get the eyebrows in. I'm going to take just my 2B, and I'm going to put some hair. Now you don't want to just color this solid. I mean, you can, but to make it look like eyebrows, you need to put in individual hairs. And then again, you can run your it's hard to go the other way. Your eyebrows kind of go all different directions, but whatever you put in is gonna be how they go. All right, and then I'm gonna take my 6B and I'm gonna put in some eyelashes. Now make sure you kind of curve them and flick them. Eyelashes don't actually just go straight out from your eye. There isn't a whole lot of actual white in her eye, just a little bit. All right, so let's go to her hair. She's got a lot of highlights, So really we're putting in the hairs, and then we'll bring out some of the highlights. A little bit of shadowing just on her forehead. All right, so we are going to just start bringing hair down. And her hair doesn't grow straight out of her head in all the places, so there is going to be some curves. I'm going to put a piece of paper down so I don't drag a lot of this. And it does just go off the page, which is totally fine. You can do that. All right. So we've got a lot of colors started. So again, I'm going to take my blending stump, and I'm going to kind of get in the midtones. I gotta get her neck in there too. Can't have no neck. Can't have no neck. It's a really weird angle though, but that's all right. Okay, so we're just getting that mid-tone in there. So smudge it just a little bit. So for some of the highlights, we are going to take our eraser and put those in. Make sure I'm still running. Okay, I'm going to take our eraser and put some of those in. Okay, so you can use this eraser. You can use your block eraser. They're still sharp, kind of, so you should be able to get in there and put some of those highlights in. She's very light up in here. We'll put some of those darks in. And then she's kind of light down here. So really we're just kind of reading the picture, right? Even that is starting to look like hair. Then you're going to take your dark colors and you're going to come in and you're going to get some of those mid or dark tones in there. And that's where it's really going to start to show, because there's a lot of okay, you can really see the hair start to take shape when you start putting in all of those different tones. And I think you have a 6B or maybe an 8B is your darkest. You are welcome to use it. And if you use more than 3 or 4 pencils, that's totally fine. You can use as many as you want. But sometimes it can get overwhelming. So if it is get overwhelming, then just stick to 3 or 4. And then just kind of soften it with your blending stump. just to kind of get rid of some of those pencil lines. And it, like where we erased and it got too light, you can take, like I'll take my H and I'll just put some hair back in. So now it's lighter, but it has some hair strands going through it. Okay, we don't need to overcomplicate it. Hair can be very complicated, and you can spend hours on hair. So I just want you to see how easy it is to add dimension and add you know, I'm really pushing that back. Let's see, I have a 10B. I'll use my 10B. I can push. So this is the spot behind her neck. Alright, and then her neck over here. This is really dark, right up against her face. So I'm going to just kind of outline her face right here. Start building up my color. I'm going to start drawing hair. So again, I'm going to take my, what did I take the other time? This is my HB. So we're going to start drawing hair. Alright, now I'm going to smudge it just to get that mid-tone in there. I'm not off camera. Oh, I think we're good. All right. She's actually pretty dark around the face. See, we gotta get some highlights in there. She doesn't have quite as many. I even have a really tiny eraser. I don't know if you can see that or not. That is like micro mini eraser. So you could actually go in and put hairs in, but I am not. You don't have those, and so I do not expect that. But she doesn't have a whole lot of highlights on this side. Just a couple. Then I go with my 2B. In those highlighted areas. I'm gonna have to do something here because I made her neck a little long, so I'm gonna have to put a shirt on her. And then I have to shade her neck, because obviously her neck is not going to be just one color. And let's get some dark up in here. All right, and then I'm gonna take, probably need my 2B, but I'm gonna start with my HB. And her neck is obviously round, so I am doing curved lines. I want it a little bit darker than her chin, so I'm going to go in with my 2B. Actually blends in. All right, so as you can see, You can put as much effort in as you want. You can keep going. The problem with art is a lot of us just don't know when to stop. And you always see something that you want to improve or keep going on. But at some point you have to stop and you have to call it good. And I just want you to see how easy it can be when you break it down into steps. It's very daunting and intimidating when you look at a portrait and think, oh my gosh, where do I even start? But once you get into it and you start seeing that it's just putting down the shapes you see and putting it in the right place, and you can use a ruler and you can measure and you can do all the things, and it doesn't have to be super complicated like we like to make things. So remember to clean up the edges. See, I've got some smudges there, and that is what we don't want. So take your eraser, clean up. Unless you intentionally add a background, try to clean up some of the mess. And there we go. This is my gal. I'm gonna call her Good because, like I said, I could keep going and never stop. But I hope you guys enjoy this. I know she's not perfect, but you know, we're working on proportions. We're working on getting things placed correctly. So I can't wait to see what you guys turn in.